What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching bUt TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today.
What's cracking? What's cracking? What's cracking? I just wanted to touch down on this topic for a little bit and give my opinion on it, because this is something I see getting thrown around when people have these LeBron James, Michael Jordan debates. Now, at some point in the argument, in the debate, it'll come around to what we hear all the time. Michael Jordan, 6-0. LeBron James, 4-6. Finals records. And then the LeBron defender, the LeBron activist, will rebuttal the Jordan 6-0 claim by saying, when did Michael Jordan ever face a team like the Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors in 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018? And as somebody, myself, that thinks Michael Jordan is the superior player and had the better career, I will say Michael Jordan has faced some great teams in the finals, but he did not face a team as good as that Warriors team, especially as far as star power goes. Okay? But I would also like to add that the eras and what was allowed in those eras of basketball, the type of play, the physicality, the rules, which you could get away with, all of that was very different, which allowed for a different brand of basketball, which allowed for a easier brand of basketball in the LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry times, as opposed to the slugfest, the physical slugfest that was going on back in the 90s when Jordan was winning those championships. Now, with that being said, as it relates to the two finals matchups against the Warriors, I would just like to say this, okay? The first time they met the Warriors, right? 2016, 2017, the Kevin Durant Warriors. People often try to make that seem like it was completely lopsided, going into that especially, which was not the case. It wasn't. The Warriors had the better record. Yes, they did. Both teams were on fire in those playoff series. Remember, we were going to be like, which team is going to lose first? They both went undefeated. Well, the Warriors went undefeated all the way into the finals until they lost one game to the Cavaliers. Cavaliers went undefeated until they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, if I'm not mistaken. And they lost one game, I believe, there before running into the finals. All right? And there were people that were picking the Cavaliers to win that series. Because why? What was their reasoning? They have LeBron James, the by far and away best player in the world. Now, that was the argument. That was the claim. So just because they lose, don't fall back on that claim. You said you had this far superior player than everybody else. Why didn't he get it done? But I don't even want to get into that. My point about bringing this up is that Warriors team versus that Cavaliers team, when you look at the personnel, they were more or less pretty evenly matched, with maybe a slight edge to the Warriors. But there wasn't this big rift, this big canyon between the talent level of those two teams. They both had super teams, right? They both had super teams. And when you look at the head-to-head, LeBron, Kevin Durant, almost a wash. Some people may go LeBron, some people may go KD. But they're more or less on, level playing fields, right? We're just going to call that a wash. I don't care who you think is better. We'll just call it a wash. Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, more or less level playing fields. In fact, in a lot of those games, Kyrie outplayed Steph Curry over that tenure against the Warriors. Over those span of years where the Cavs and Warriors met, Kyrie outplayed Steph many of those games. Steph, Kyrie, call that a wash. Now, people tend to forget about Kevin Love and try to act like he was some kind of bum, which is not the case. Kevin Love was a perennial all-star. Kevin Love was one of the best players in the league until he went to the Cavaliers and sacrificed his entire career to be a third option. How he became a third option when he was supposed to be a second option, I don't know. But it happened. Kyrie has the ball in his hand, so that might have a big thing to do with it. But Kevin Love or Klay Thompson, Kevin Love is the better player. That's not even a wash. Especially in that first series, Kevin Love was averaging against the Golden State Warriors with KD, damn near 20 points, 11 rebounds, playing phenomenal and decent defensively. Could rebound, could guard the interior, not an elite defender, but could guard the interior, and could stretch the floor as a big. Okay? And the same for Draymond Green. Kevin Love was a superior player to Draymond Green. Yes, Draymond Green was better defensively and playmaking within the Warriors offense, but Kevin Love on any team is Kevin Love. Draymond Green, we don't have the evidence, but many people would say he relishes in a system, the Golden State Warriors offense, that allows him to be who he is. Many people would say that Draymond Green is not the same Draymond Green on any other team. There's no evidence to support that. But either way, Kevin Love is a better player than both Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. And even if you want to say, hey, let's call Klay, let's call Kevin Love a wash. Okay, I'll play that game. Wash. So that leaves Draymond Green. That's why I said the gap wasn't that big. Golden State slightly better, but they were close to being equal. And I don't even think Draymond Green is an all-star like people try to make him out to be. Draymond Green is a glorified role player. He's an S-tier role player and fits perfectly in that system. And when you go down to the bench, both of their benches were comparable. They were. So, like I said, there wasn't a big Grand Canyon separating these two teams. Now you say, well, one only had like 50 wins, the other one had 67 wins. Well, that has more to do how the team was ran and how they utilized their players. All right, you drop Kevin Durant in any team, he doesn't monopolize the ball. He plays within the confines of the team. Kevin Durant doesn't take anything away from anybody, but only adds. That's a testament to the player that Kevin Durant is, how unselfish he is, and how he just wanted to play team basketball, didn't care about numbers, and he had the skill set to make that happen. All right, LeBron James, not the case. They didn't have to run the Cavaliers team like they ran the Cavaliers team, like we've seen every team run through LeBron James. You're playing a dangerous game when you select to play a kind of basketball where one guy monopolizes the ball the whole time. One guy is either going to make the pass for the shot, or shoot the ball and hold on to the ball. And when he doesn't have the ball, he's not moving, he's not doing anything, he's rarely setting screens. He's just sitting in the corner or standing somewhere just waiting for the ball to get back to him, but not moving. Hardly any movement without the basketball unless he's slashing to catch the ball on a drive. That brand of basketball may work when you're going against lesser teams, significantly lesser teams, because that one player can be so dominant in the game of basketball. But once you run into an actual good team, an actual elite team that plays a better brand of basketball, it's not going to work so well for you. It's not. So the rosters were close to being even, but how they decided to play their brand of basketball was the big difference on why one team ultimately was so much better, because of how they played, not so much because of the personnel. I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, opposite of that, the following year, the 2017-2018 Warriors were, on paper and brand of basketball, far better than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Because remember, Cavaliers lost Kyrie Irving that year. Kevin Love was a step slower. They went through several roster changes that season, trying to put something together, and they still made it to the finals. But at that point, they were far, far, far. That is the year where there was a big rift in the quality of teams, especially with the absence of Kyrie Irving. That changed a lot. So I wanted to throw that out there. All right. Now, for the people saying, "Oh, but Jordan never faced a team like that Warriors team." Da 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 da. Okay, you want to play that game? Scratch it. Okay, let's take those 2 losses off of LeBron James' finals record. Okay, he's still sitting at 4-4 compared to 6-0. So still, I'm giving you that. I will give you that. Just because I just so I don't have to hear it, but you're still sitting at 4-4 compared to 6-0. Doesn't make it that much better. Doesn't. Something else that I always like to consider, but I don't think a lot of people consider. They just talk about, who they play in the finals, right? Who they play in the finals, but they rarely talk about what was the road like getting up to the finals. Because when I look at the playoff run, when I look at a championship, I just don't look at the finals. I look at the entire stretch of the postseason. First round to the championship trophy. Who did you play? What happened? What's the story? Okay? And I feel like more people should bring that up more. I think that should be more of the topic of discussion than just the finals. As a diehard Laker fan, as a Kobe Bryant fan, I will be the first person to tell you. Those first 3 championships with Shaq against the Indiana Pacers, right? Against the Philadelphia 76ers, against the New Jersey Nets, I'll be the first to tell you. And like I said, I'm completely unbiased. I was like, yeah, those Eastern Conference teams weren't, like, they were good to great teams, but they weren't no world beaters. They weren't no, all-time teams by any means. They were really good teams at most, but they were completely outmatched against the Lakers. I will be the first to tell you that. But I always bring up that Western Conference was the real test for anybody in the West, let alone just the Lakers. Getting out of the West was the true test. You were going up against true championship contending teams in the second and third rounds. But people like to not mention that. People don't like to bring that up. Going against Pop and the San Antonio Spurs round 2 or round 3. That beast Portland Trailblazers team. That beast Sacramento Kings team. Before the finals. That was the real test. That cannot go unnoticed. That cannot go not mentioned when we have these discussions. I look at that as well. Not just the championship round. Who are you playing? What was the road? What was the test like getting up to there? Because there were championship level brawls in that Western Conference. There was. And with that being said, they say these guys, most of the LeBron activists always say stuff like, oh, Jordan and the ones before him played against firemen and plumbers. More so, they talking about the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s squads. And sometimes they bring it up with the 90s teams. They mention that, they'll say, oh, yeah, but Jordan got swept by, the Boston Celtics, was getting beat by the Detroit Pistons until he actually won. Those guys, he could only win when those guys got older, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we can play that game. But this just adds to the point I'm trying to make. Okay? That Eastern Conference, especially in the 80s, Jordan came in the mid-80s, was a beast. You're going to sit here and tell me you're going to knock Michael Jordan for losing to all-time legendary great teams when he didn't have one at the time, but yet you're going to ignore the fact, right, that LeBron James didn't even make the playoffs his first 2 years. So what's worse, the guy that couldn't even make the playoffs, or the guy that made it to the playoffs but lost to an all-time great team? Where's the logic in that argument? Please, tell me. Michael Jordan didn't, during his tenure with the Bulls, Mike never missed the playoffs. He didn't miss the playoffs until he came back to the Wizards. Come on. I've watched a lot of basketball. And one thing I know is that Eastern Conference, especially after Michael Jordan left, was the weakest conference I have ever seen in the history of basketball, still up until this day. At any given time, at most, they might have had 1 to 2 truly elite teams at the same time. For a span of practically 20 years, a little over 20 years actually. The Western Conference over the last 20 years has been far superior than the Eastern Conference. It just has. And that's not even debatable. That's facts. I would like to take a moment and explain to everyone what Michael Jordan was going through. Not just in the years he won the championships, but at which point he was a rookie. The kinds of teams Michael Jordan was facing in the playoffs, losing to or winning to throughout his career. People also always like to say, oh, who did Michael Jordan face? He didn't face nobody. LeBron James had to go against Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. I'll show you who Michael Jordan faced. Let me explain. This took some research. 84-85 season, Michael Jordan's rookie year. Lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. A Milwaukee Bucks team that was 59-23, led by Sidney Moncrief and Terry Cummings. This team was 6th in offensive rating and 2nd in defensive rating. All right, next year, 85-86 NBA playoffs. Michael Jordan went up against the Boston Celtics, arguably the greatest team of all time, but undoubtedly one of the greatest teams of all time. 67-15 record, led by Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Parrish, Bill Walton, DJ, and a bunch of excellent role players. Scottie Pippen wasn't on the team at this time. Scottie Pippen didn't get drafted to the 87-88 season. And then Scottie Pippen was mostly coming off the bench. Scottie Pippen really didn't become something close to the Scottie Pippen that we know as he started getting into his prime until the 89-90 season. Michael had to mold Scottie into who he would become. All right? That Boston Celtics team was 3rd in offensive rating and 1st in defensive rating. A top 3 offense and defense, marking number 1 on defense. And Michael Jordan was rolling around with a bunch of paper clips and thumbtacks. Just saying. 86-87 season, swept again by the Boston Celtics. Same Boston Celtics squad. 59-23 were the Celtics record. 3rd on offense, 9th on defense. 87-88 season. Michael Jordan finally goes up against a somewhat mediocre team and the Cleveland Cavaliers with a 42-40 record, but still had some solid players in Craig Elo, Del Curry, Ron Harper, and Mark Price. That Cavaliers team was 15th in offensive rating and 5th in defensive rating. Same playoff year. Now Mike goes up against the Detroit Pistons. 54-28, 6th on offense, 2nd on defense. Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars, Darryl Dawkins, Rick Mahorn. Dirtiest team to ever play the game of basketball. An all-time team. And outside of the Lakers and the Boston Celtics, which ran the 80s, the Detroit Pistons was right there behind them. All right. Next season, 88-89 season. Back against the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are now a much better team, boasting a 57-25 record, 9th on offense, 2nd on defense. After that, the Bulls go up against the New York Knicks, 52-30, 6th on offense, 10th on defense. Patrick Ewing, Mark Jackson, Oak, and Roddy. All right, same playoff season, 88-89, back to the Detroit Pistons, still an elite team, 54-28, 6 offensive rating, second in the league in defense. Next playoff year, 89-90 season, they played the Milwaukee Bucks, not a very good team, 44-38, no players worth mentioning. Next, they go up against the 76ers, same year, 53-29. Team's not as good as they used to be. Dr. J's not there anymore. Big Mo's not there anymore. But Charles Barkley's there to lead the team, still to over 50 wins, second on offense, 16th on defense. They beat the 76ers, go on to face the Detroit Pistons again, 89-90 season. 59-23 are the Pistons' record, second in defense in the league, almost top 10 in offense. Year after that, 90-91 Knicks. Not a good team, 39-43. Same playoff run. They go against the Sixers again, 44-38. They took a few steps back. Chuck's still on the team. They got Rick Mahorn now and Manute Bol. 90-91 going up against the Pistons again. Now 50-32. Same Pistons squad. Then they go into the finals. We all know what happens. Los Angeles Lakers. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is gone, but they're still 58-24. Magic Johnson not quite at peak self, but still one of the best players in the league in that final series. Averaged almost 20 points per game, almost 13 assists and 7 rebounds. Still had Vlade Divac, Byron Scott, Thompson, James Worthy. They got a 54-24 record. They made it to the finals for a reason. Magic Johnson was not a shell of himself, like some people like to say. Still one of the elite players in the game. All right. Year after that, 91-92 Miami Heat. Not a great team, 38-44. Best player was Glenn Rice. After that, 91-92 season, New York Knicks, 51-31, 12th on offense, second on defense. Ewing, Greg Anthony, Mark Jackson, Anthony Mason, John Starks. The New York Knicks are slowly starting to get better. Dismantle them to go into the Cavaliers, who are 57-25, second in the league on offense, almost top 10 in defense. With Brad, Larry Nance, Mark Price. They dismantle them, go on to face the Blazers in the 91-92 finals. 57-25 record for the Blazers with Drexler, Terry Porter, 7th on offense, 3rd on defense. Let's go next season. 92-93 Atlanta Hawks. Not a great team, 43 wins, but they had Dominique Wilkins and Kevin Willis. After that, Cavaliers, still a good team, 54-28. 3rd on offense, 6th on defense, with Brad, Larry Nance, and Mark Price still. 92-93 Knicks, 60-22. The Knicks are finally hitting their peak. And while they weren't even top 20 in offense, but they were first defensively. That was a solid defensive team in that New York Knicks, led by Patrick Ewing. They go on to dismantle the Knicks to face the Phoenix Suns with a 62-20 record. 1st on offense, 9th on defense. Back-to-back series against 60-win teams. Come on. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? And that Suns team had Chuck, KJ, Dan the Man. They had 7 players averaging over 11 points. All right, we all know what happens to Mike. Leaves the game of basketball, comes back in time for the 94-95 playoffs, faces the Hornets. Decent team, 50 wins. Both 9th on the offense and defense in the league with Zoe, Larry Johnson. They would dismantle them to go face the Magic, where they would lose. The Magic were 57-25. The best offensive team in the league, 13th on defense. Shaq, Penny, Horace Grant, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott. They had a squad. Mike wasn't quite in basketball shape yet. We know the story. Bulls come back with a vengeance next season, 95-96 versus the Miami Heat. Mediocre team, 42 wins, 6 on defense. All he really had was Zoe and Tim Hardaway, but still quality players. After that, they go against the Knicks again, 47-35, 4th in defense. After that, they get the rematch against the Orlando Magic in 95-96. Magic, still a great team, 60-22, 3rd on offense, but gets swept. And still has that juggernaut lineup. 95-96 season, they face the Sonics again, back-to-back series against 60-win teams, 64-18. Were the Supersonics. This team does not get much credit, and I don't know why. 8th on offense, 2nd on defense. GP, De La Shrimp, Sean Kemp, Perkins, Hershey Hawkins. What are we talking about? 96-97 season, 1st round, mediocre team. Washington Bullets, 44 wins, led by Chris Webb, Rod, Juwan Howard. After that, 96-97 season, Atlanta Hawks. 56-26 record, 8th on offense, 3rd on defense. Dikembe Mutombo being the defensive anchor and the best player on the team, though he wasn't so much concerned with offense. Mutombo was amazing. Christian Laettner, sniper Steve Smith, Mookie Blaylock. Come on, man. Same season. Next round, Miami Heat, 61-21 record, 1st in defense in the league, led by Tim Hardaway, Jamal Mashburn, Zoe, Vashawn Leonard. I didn't have to mention Vashawn Leonard, but the only reason I mentioned Vashawn Leonard because I went to high school with his brother. Yeah, he was a hell of a ball player too. Could shoot just like his brother. Hell of a passer. He used to do the Larry Bird fake pass in the gym class. Next, 96-97 Jazz. Again, back-to-back series against 60-plus win teams. The Jazz were 2nd on offense, 9th on defense. We all know Malone, Stockton, Jeff Hornacek, Brian Russell. Next season, 97-98 playoffs. New Jersey Nets, 5th on offense. Mediocre team, led by Keith Van Horn and Sam Cassell. After that, they played the Hornets. Mediocre team. They're a good team. 51 wins. Glenn Rice, Anthony Mason, David Wesley. Then they went against the 97-98 Pacers. 58 wins. 4th on offense, 5th on defense. You know, Reggie Miller, Rick Smits, Mark Jackson. And then go against the Jazz again. 62 wins, 1st on offense. So you can sit here and say, oh, he's never had to face Kevin Durant and Steph Curry Warriors for 2 years out of his whole career. It boils down to just those 2 years. That's what you're holding your argument on? Just those 2 years? Like I said, you can take that, watch it. Now what's your talking point? I needed to show you the level of teams Michael Jordan was going against, the names, the players, all the Hall of Famers that Michael Jordan was playing against since he got into the league. This was the road to the championship. This was the road to success. These were the beatings he had to take. These were the losses he had to take in his conference and even into the finals. And like I said, people always like to say LeBron has faced fiercer competition in the finals. Jordan has never faced competition in the finals like LeBron James as an excuse for his losses. So like I said, I'll erase the Kevin Durant Warriors for the sake of argument. So let's focus on his 4 finals losses compared to Jordan's 0. His first finals loss, 2007 finals, San Antonio Spurs. Tim Duncan was in his prime, but guess what? Tim Duncan wasn't Tim Duncan in that series. Tim Duncan didn't show up. Tim Duncan got pretty much, I'm not going to say locked down, but he got held in check by Drew Gooden and Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Tim Duncan did not get finals MVP. Tony Parker did. So while Tim Duncan was the best player on the team, Tony Parker was the best player in that series, and they were led by Tony Parker in the finals. You're right. Jordan has never faced a team in the finals like that Tony Parker-led San Antonio Spurs. My Lord. LeBron, you're amazing. Next time LeBron goes to the finals, 2011, would also be his next finals loss. Bear in mind, the Miami Heat super team are the heavy favorites to win this series, and they lose to the Dallas Mavericks, led by Dirk Nowitzki, the lone all-star on the team. LeBron does not show up in that series, especially in the fourth quarters. Michael Jordan has never faced a team in the finals like that Dirk Nowitzki-led Dallas Mavericks team. Man, LeBron, you had to go through that juggernaut. Man, you're so much greater than Jordan. All right, LeBron's next finals loss will come at the hands of the San Antonio Spurs again, still with the Miami Heat super team. This time, Tim Duncan is out of his prime. Kawhi Leonard gets finals MVP. Kawhi Leonard, who was still 3 to 4 years away from being Kawhi Leonard as we know him to be as an elite player in the league. This was still baby Kawhi Leonard. Baby. LeBron James. Man, Jordan has never faced a team like that San Antonio Spurs team led by Kawhi Leonard. That version of Kawhi Leonard. Man. Next finals loss will come at the hand of the Golden State Warriors. Prior to them, the year before, they won 73 games. Bear in mind, LeBron James did not have Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. His next best running man was Matthew Dellavedova, I guess you could say, after Kyrie Irving got hurt in like game 1 or 2. I can't remember which one. And they ended up losing that series. But Jordan has never faced a team like that Golden State Warrior team. Man. You see what I'm talking about, people? Michael Jordan went 7-1 against 60-win teams in the playoffs for his career. 7-1. LeBron James, through that weak Eastern Conference, whenever he ran up against a 60-win team, 3-4. 3-4. Compared to Mike's 7-1. Playoff teams that LeBron James defeated, get this, in LeBron James's career, going on year 21 now, by the way. All right, teams he defeated in the playoffs. 5 30-win teams. Michael Jordan, 2 30-win teams. LeBron James, 23 40-win teams. All right. Michael Jordan, 8 40-win teams. LeBron James, 12 50-win teams. Michael Jordan, 13 50-win teams. All right. LeBron James, 2 60-win teams. 7 60-win teams. LeBron James, 1 70-win team. Michael Jordan, no 70-win teams, because Michael Jordan was the 70-win team. Now, obviously, LeBron James' overall counting numbers are going to be higher because he played a significantly longer career. 21 seasons compared to Michael's 15 seasons, but only 13 seasons with the Chicago Bulls. So take that into consideration. But even with Jordan's smaller sample size of playoff exposure, he still has more wins against 50 and 60-win teams than LeBron James in his 21 years. That is the big takeaway from this. He played significantly less and played harder, stiffer competition, had more success in a smaller amount of time, in a much more difficult era to play basketball. Jordan has only played with 2 Hall of Famers and top 75 players in Pippen and Rodman. Those were the only 2. Meanwhile, compared to Jordan's 2 Hall of Famers that he played, to reach all the success he did, LeBron James has played with 12 Hall of Famers and counting. Fact of the matter is, LeBron wasn't able to win championships until he disrupted the competitive balance, especially in that Eastern Conference, and made a super team. Those are the facts. He did not reach playoff success until he tried to monopolize everything. And he knew what he was doing, because in one of those little I don't know, conferences or interviews after the Miami Heat, the Heatles were joined, he basically said, not verbatim, "Oh man, nobody's going to be able to stop us. We're just going to be so hard to guard." It's like, did you just really say that? Is that what you want? Obviously, it just came out of your mouth. That's what you want. You don't want it to be competitive. That came out of his mouth. Come on, man. So it's not like they knew what they were doing, what they were trying to do. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out how they wanted to, or how they thought it would. I watched LeBron James play his whole career. I saw those Eastern Conference teams he was feasting on. Those 30-win teams, those 40-win teams, somehow making the playoffs because the Eastern Conference was just that weak, when at times super weak. A 60-win team in the Atlanta Hawks that really had no superstar, led by Jeff Teague and Al Horford and Kyle Korver. Keep this in mind. Kyle Korver, whose brand of basketball is only a spot-up shooter, made an all-star team on that Atlanta Hawks team. Kyle Korver made an all-star team. Makes no sense. That's how weak that Eastern Conference was. I rest my case. Let me know what you think about it. Am I off? Am I wrong? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your opinion on it? I would love to hear your opinion. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.